Well, Tommy, our first guest is Bob Geldof! Great.
You're getting better looking as you get older.
That's just because you were born 40 years after, you know.
Great. You always have great clothes.
It's a leather jacket and jeans, Tommy.
I know. Anytime I see you being photographed and stuff, I'm always kind of struck by your.
Yeah, you could do it.
A bit of fixing up.
Yeah.
We think we know stuff about you.
Yep.
Is that a burden to you that we think we know you?
No, because not so much a conscious decision very early on. I was never interested in the star thing. I wanted the fame thing, but I wanted that so you'd have a platform to talk about the things that bothered you. And I think that was largely successful in some areas, and then in other ways it became a problem in itself. But by and large, I think generally people have a fix. It's one way or the other. He's an idiot or he's okay, and both of those things are true simultaneously.
To me, it's more that, and I don't know if you were. Worried about this, not worried about it, but just kind of a place you didn't want to go. I suppose sorrow travels in front of you in terms of our awareness of your story.
Yeah, I know that's true too, but there's also, it's balanced again by, I've described this life as being bizarrely episodic. And it's like you're in your own, I hope this doesn't sound grand, because I really don't mean it to be, it's like you're in your own soap opera. And you find yourself in the middle of a scene that in no way have you constructed, but you're there and you're in the middle of it and it's unfolding. And like anyone's life, there's not much you can do about it. And that episode seems to stop and then become another episode. So it really is tiring, because there's, you know, obviously incredible things have happened to me. And there's been the karmic downside, though I never believe in the karmic ragtag and bobtail, but it's so present and obvious. People know the highs that have happened to me or they've been involved in, you know, making the Boomtown Rats huge. Mm-hmm. Which they were involved in because they bought all the records and cheered us on, especially in this country. And then, you know, the downsides of that are, you know, the family and the downsides, or Live Aid and the downsides, and it's all extremely public. But that's the nature of my life and job. So there's no use coming on your show and saying, I'm not going to talk about that. That's bollocks, you know, so...
There's, I suppose, because every parent has their worst nightmare, and it just it seems amazing to us that when we see people who have lived through that they're still walking.
Yeah, but everyone who's been through that or who's seen it with their friend. Last week I went to the funeral of my mate's son. And he didn't want me to come for fear that I had to relive it. And, but I had to be there for him because it is unbearable. No, you don't, no. Time doesn't heal, time accommodates. And it's ever present. You're driving along and you're at the traffic lights, and for no reason whatsoever, the person in question inhabits you. And I'll cry. And then I look around to make sure the people next door don't see me or are taking a photo and posting it or something. But that happens, and that happens to everyone. And so you say, OK, it's time to cry now. And you just do it to the maximum, because there's no use holding it in. Lights are green or whatever you do before, and then you go. And that'll always be there, and you accommodate that. But once you understand the nature of this, because it is boundless, and it is, you know, it is bottomless, the grief and the abyss is infinite.
It's the grief is bigger than you are?
Of course it is. I mean, of course it is, you know. But that's not the issue. The issue is that you learn. And I'm lucky because I do music, and I'm not trying to steer this around to the fact that the Boomtown Rats have a new album. But, you know, but I am lucky because Phil Davison, who's a novelist friend of mine from Dublin, he says he writes books to put a frame of reference around that which he's experienced. And that's correct, that's brilliant. And so I get to write songs, not consciously. Now I'm going to write about peaches. Now I'm going to write about Paul. And now I'm going to write about my wife, who gives me boundless joy. I'm not going to do that because that's too obvious, but you do. I can spot it in the songs now. I may not be aware, but it puts a frame of reference. It says, no, it's not boundless, Bob. You can contain it. In my head, it's like a memory stick, you know, a USB stick. And I find an available slot in my headspace, and I put it in there. And every now and again at the traffic lights, it slips out. And I go, and I can hold it in front of me, like literally almost like that. And I go, I know you, you fucker. You know, get back in there, and I can slot it back, and it's there, and it's shimmering away all the time, but you can't live like that. And I just get tired of the soap opera nature. I mean, it's so extreme, the things that happened. I just stop, you know, what, you know?
It's like that, I don't know if you've read The End of the Affair by Graham Greene.
I love The End of the Affair.
And where he says, he asks God to leave him alone. He says to God, I'll leave you alone if you leave me alone, because of what he's been through, like the soap operas, he can't, he doesn't want any more. I
don't have that luxury because there is no God, so I can't go to him. I just rail at the fates, not that there are any, you just do that. I find myself on stage with the band sometimes just going like, just literally going like that. And I suppose that's where the drug is. That's why you want to go out on a stage. And just when that band makes that racket, that absolutely excites me, and I'm gone. And that is the catharsis. And I leave the stage and I'm utterly exhausted, emotionally, psychologically, physically, but alive.
Yeah.
Alive.
Are you surprised that you still have an audience for the music?
I'm surprised if there is an audience for the music.
How old are you?
I'm 68.
Okay.
I'm not. It's a great band, you know. I mean, it was 10 years. And in those 10 years, these kids from Dunleary they needed to invent their own lives. There was nothing going on in Ireland in the mid-70s, nothing. Looking After Number One is still played. And I wrote it on the dole queue in Dunleary. And, you know, I wrote The World Owes Me a Living on my dole card. And there was a queue, and there was these lads of 40, through no fault of their own, unemployed, Ireland 1975-6, forget it. There they were inside in their cosy little civil service with the stove on and drinking tea. Meanwhile, everyone was freezing outside. It was 9:15. I wrote The World Owes Me a Living. I've been waiting on this dole queue too long. I've been waiting for 15 minutes. That's a quarter of an hour too long. And I sing it now in the wake of the catastrophe of 2008, I can sing I don't like Mondays because 2 weeks ago there was another massacre. It's not yesterday, it's now, and I will sing it with the same rage and animus, and I'm not going to stop.
Well, Am I naive then?
Yes.
To pray? And am I naive to believe that if the heart has a hunger, it's because that food is there somewhere? Is that an idiocy, do you think?
Not at all. It's glorious, and it's essentially human. I mean, essentially human. Am I naive to pray? Not at all. All people pray. But they're praying to anything. It's the higher power thing, though I don't believe in a higher power. I had to answer some questionnaire thing for Mojo magazine last week. And they said, what happens after death? And I said, blessed oblivion. Basta, gone. Whew. I got through that one. That's it. And that's what I hope. I will be very disappointed if there's something afterwards, Can
I ask you, what happened...
About the new album, The Boomtown Rats and
Fuck's sake. You have to work for the plug. Can I ask you, what happens to you when you talk? Do you delight in talking? Do you love talking?
That's the Irish thing. I mean, it really is. We have the words. And I've often said that in the UK, I'm Irish, we have the words. And it is a thing. It is a thing we do. When we were children, we didn't have TV and stuff, and my dad would come home on Friday. He'd be away all week working. And it was difficult trying to establish a relationship with his 3 children again. It's boring. I didn't have a mum. So it was difficult to try and get a family vibe happening. And he would spark 7, 8 o'clock Friday night. He'd do the cooking because he used to be a chef before he was a traveller. And it was always good, the food at the weekend, because Dad cooked. And he'd spark it, because there'd be silence. We just, we're kind of embarrassed, like with this semi-stranger who we loved. I didn't love, I feared and had angst with him. And, I did we both end up loving each other, of course. But, boy-dad thing, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was being grumpy and sullen. And the old fellow would sit there. He didn't actually say this, so I don't want somebody tweeting like crazy. I'm just trying to think of an example that will give you how he'd do stuff. He'd be there and he'd put down his knife fork. He'd go, yeah, all the same, that fella Hitler had a couple of good ideas. Something so manifestly outrageous, like, why you? And, like, of course, all hell would break loose around the table. I mean, like, you had to make your point, impassioned as it might be. And, of course, when it got to 13 and 14, and my sister Lynn is kind of the same. And my elder sister was sort of the conservative one. She says, oh, yes, he was quite right, sort of thing. I mean, of course, she'd never say that. But, that sort of thing. I suppose that's part of it.
I'm trying to find the thread there, that the desire...
Conversation was nurtured. Okay. It was organised, it was structured. You won the tea time round, sort of, if you could argue the others into submission. And it wouldn't be enough to just, sometimes Lynn would get so worked up she'd cry and then be, with passion, and I'd win. And so the thing was to get her so wound up,
that she wept.
And then you're horrible, I can't stand you anymore, ouch, So that was it, yeah. Very weird.
2 more things I'd love to ask you.
Go on.
talk to me about sex.
Well, now, Tommy, if you could... No. How often do you do it a week? Come on.
No, what I mean is, my curiosity is, I'm 50.
Yeah.
And I want to know what sex is like when you're 68.
Difficult. I mean, you know, that laser-driven drive of a 16-year-old clearly isn't there. Mm-hmm. And as you age, it tempers, which you must understand at 50. And then by 68, it doesn't always need chemical assistance, but it fucking helps. And also, you must be very careful, because the beauty of a long married wife hides in plain sight. And you must always look to that woman who animates you, so that once again she electrifies you. And it's very easy with my missus, who I've been with for 25 years. I'm sort of a one-woman geezer. And just, and I'm not being soppy here, being happy together is such a turn-on that you're sitting there watching the box, and I'm really fucking annoying. I've got the remote here and the guitar here, and I'm going like this. The knees are jiggling, ding, 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 and she's going, you know. But when I'm not doing that, and we're there, and like, you know that thing. When Paula left me, and it became almost impossible to live, and I was kept going by some close friends, Pete Briquette from The Rats being one of them. I remember a futile flight home from something in Europe, and I was going back to nothing, because my home, my family, everyone I'd loved, and this edifice I'd constructed, Bob World, because it hadn't happened here as a kid, as I've explained. And that had gone like that, and I really didn't understand why I'd lost everything I took to be true. And I was on this plane back to nothing, and I was, why am I even flying? What? It doesn't matter where, I couldn't remember where I was, Milan, or why not just stay and go anywhere? Literally go anywhere, because they've gone. And it was so disorientating and discombobulating. And I was sitting there really sad, just doesn't do it. And again, I'm very aware that lots of you have been through this. Sitting in the plane, and there was this couple bickering, non-stop. And he got stuck into a book, and she was reading a mag. 10 minutes to landing. So, like, what's it? Everyone starts doing the belt. And then you hear the wheels going down. And as the wheels came down, she just put out her hand, and he covered it. And I was so envious of that unacknowledged intimacy, that they'd been arguing. And again, I was so envious of the knowledgeable bickering, that they knew each other so well. Maybe they were like getting on each other's nerves. I wanted to have someone who got on my nerves even. I wanted someone who could do that, and there's nothing. There's nothing. You put out the hand and there's nothing. And the other end of that is when you do have that, it's sexy. The other end of it is, it doesn't happen as often, and I'm glad about that, really. And if you're in a rock and roll band, literally, you've shagged the world, you know? I mean, you know, it's not even a question of believing your luck. You get so used to it. And And, you know, I don't know about the other guys, but sometimes I didn't even want to. I just felt I had to, you know. You're also lonely, you know. You've got, how many months have we been out now? And, OK, here's someone to hold on to for the night. I suppose I got to shag him. Fuck it, you know. But it gets like that, you know. I don't know. I don't know what it's like being a girl at 68, you know. Is it go away? Or, I don't know, you know. So you'll get there. Don't worry about it, you know.
So tell us about what the Rats are up to over the next while, and tell us the name of the album.
We had a single out a couple of days ago, which is mega, and good reviews all around, great video. The 2-hour documentary, which has been screened on RTÉ March. New album, Citizens of Boomtown. Faber asked me, could they do the collected lyrics for 40 years?
Wow.
And which was flattering, so that's called Tales of Boomtown Glory. So the book, the album, the film, the tour, we're doing the Forever Young Festival in July here, festivals in Europe, and it's full on. And I didn't know, I don't think any of us knew that we were in a great band. We're in a great band. It just kicks off, and I don't care. I cared when I was a kid. I was worried that the Clash were selling faster than us, that the Sex Pistols records was better than us, that, you know, and it was all the time, we've got to, and we need a new record and all that stuff. Couldn't care less now. It's just straight on rock and roll. And I don't think I'd come on this show. Well, you've got the cut of my jib now. I don't think I'd big up a record if I wasn't convinced. Well, I love this record. The noise. Someone needs to sing these blues, the blues of the now. And if that's these old geezers from Dunleary, County Dublin, Ireland, so be it. And that's where I'm at.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
There's Bob Geldof.